The city of Oak Haven was still a charcoal sketch against the pre-dawn sky, a vast grid of dormant potential waiting for the sun to ignite it. Elias sat on the edge of his bed, the blue light of his smartphone casting a sickly pallor over his face. He was currently lost in the snooze loop, that hazy, low-level battle with a digital alarm that he lost 4 or 5 times every single morning. By the time he actually stood up, he was already in a state of reaction. His first conscious thoughts surrendered to a digital slurry of headlines and social media noise. He felt like he was working hard because he felt busy, but he was merely a passenger in his own life. Caught in the reactive mass of the 99%, the silence of the apartment was suddenly broken by a presence that felt like a sharp drop in barometric pressure. The mentor stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the dark horizon like a general surveying a battlefield. The world is divided into 2 groups. Elias, the mentor said, his voice a low, resonant rasp that seemed to vibrate the glass. There are those who react to the day, and those who command it. You are currently a slave to the sun. You wait for the light to tell you when to move, and by then, the spoils of war have already been divided. You think wealth is built in boardrooms. No, wealth is built in the silence before 8 a.m. It is built in the 180 minutes of sovereignty that you currently flush down the drain of digital distraction. Elias looked down at the glowing phone in his hand, feeling the weight of the mentor's gaze. I've tried the 5 a.m. thing, Elias countered, his voice sounding thin and defensive. I just end up exhausted by noon. I feel like I'm working hard, but I'm always behind. Is this really about the time? Or is it just another productivity myth for the elite to feel superior? The mentor turned, the dim light catching the sharp predatory lines of his face. It's not about the hour, Elias. It's about the leverage. The top 1% don't wake up early to work more. They wake up early to work better. By 8 a.m., you have already suffered a dozen micro-distractions that have drained your decision-making capital. You are trying to build an empire with a battery that is already at 20%. The mentor walked toward the desk and closed Elias's laptop with a sharp final click. You are engaging in mental suicide, he continued, pacing the room with a measured intensity. The human brain operates on a finite supply of willpower. When you check your phone first thing in the morning, you are engaging the limbic system, the primitive, reactive part of your brain, and bypassing the prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of strategy and long-term wealth. The elite spend their first 3 hours in a state of cognitive priming. They treat their morning like a ritual of sovereignty, ensuring their internal environment is optimized before they ever step into the external chaos of the market. While you are reacting to an email from a disgruntled client, they have already finished their most difficult strategic task. Look at Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, the mentor said, his eyes narrowing as he gestured toward the city. He is famous for being in the gym by 5 a.m. Do you think he's there because he loves the iron? No, he is there because that is when he processes the global data of his empire without the noise of the world interrupting him. He is clearing the static before the transmission begins. Or consider Robert Iger during his reign at Disney. He was up at 4:15 a.m. every single day. Why? For quiet time. He understood that the moment the phone starts ringing, you are no longer the architect, you are the fire department. If you don't build your world before 8 a.m., the world will use you to build its own. Elias looked out the window at the distant headlights of early commuters, the reactive mass heading to jobs they hated. He realized their stress wasn't caused by the work, but by the lack of control. So, what's the actual sequence? Elias asked, a spark of genuine hunger finally replacing his hesitation. If I lock my phone away and reclaim those hours, what am I actually doing? How do I transform a 5 a.m. wake-up into a $100,000 mindset? The mentor stepped into the center of the room. You follow the 1% protocol. It is a 3-phase transition from a worker bee to an architect. The first phase, the mentor explained, is physical and circadian activation. You don't negotiate with your body. You command it. Immediate hydration to flush the cortisol of sleep, followed by exposure to natural light to reset the master clock in the brain. The elite don't wait to feel awake. They use physiology to force alertness. Look at Tony Robbins. He starts his day with a cold plunge, submerging his body in 57-degree water. It isn't a wellness trend. It is a neurological reset. He is telling his nervous system, I am the master here. He is training his brain to lean into discomfort the second he opens his eyes. By the time he steps onto a stage, he has already won the hardest battle of his day. The second phase is the input audit, the mentor continued. While the masses consume social media junk food, the elite consume strategic fuel. They read, they listen, and they visualize, not to feel good, but to prime their pattern recognition software. Warren Buffett spends 80% of his day reading. Where do you think that habit started? It didn't start in a boardroom. It started in the early morning hours of his youth. He was looking for the hidden moves in the market while the rest of the world was looking at the sports page. You are currently feeding your mind digital poison and wondering why your bank account is sick. The mentor grabbed a pen and drew a single, heavy circle on a notepad. The third and most vital phase is the Goliath Task. Between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m., there is a window of neuroplasticity where your brain is a supercomputer. Most people use this time to make coffee and fold laundry. The 1% use it to slay their Goliath. The one task that has the highest ROI, the one that everyone else is too intimidated to start. Think of Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. They have famously stated they make their most high-IQ decisions before lunch. Why? Because the decision fatigue hasn't set in yet. By the time the world's workday begins at 9 a.m., the architect has already secured his victory. Success is not about how hard you work. It's about the quality of the gap you create between yourself and the competition. Consider Michelle Obama, the mentor added, his voice steady. She spoke about waking up at 4:30 a.m. to work out because if she didn't do it then, it wouldn't happen. She recognized that her health was the foundation of her service. Or look at Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. His clanging and banging happens at 4 a.m. That isn't just about muscle. It's about the psychological edge of knowing you are working while your competition is dreaming. He has already achieved a massive win before his rivals have even opened their eyes. That is how you build a $100 million brand, not through luck, but through the relentless exploitation of the dawn. Elias looked at the silent room, the reality of the sacrifice beginning to set in. It sounds lonely, he admitted. The mentor smiled, a rare and chilling expression. Wealth is a lonely road until you arrive at the summit. The 1% don't find time. They steal it from the mundane. They understand that every yes to a morning distraction is a no to their dream life. You aren't just waking up early, Elias. You are performing an act of rebellion against a system designed to keep you reactive, poor, and tired. If you win the morning every day for a year, you haven't just had 365 good days. You have created a psychological lead that is mathematically impossible for the 99% to close. Look at the data, Elias, the mentor said, pulling a digital tablet from the desk. A study of over 200 self-made millionaires found that nearly 50% of them woke up at least 3 hours before their workday actually started. They weren't checking TikTok, they were exercising, meditating, and planning. They were building the mental fortress. Indra Nooyi, the former CEO of PepsiCo, was at her desk by 7 a.m. every day. She didn't get there by accident. She got there by realizing that the quiet hours are the only hours where the architect can actually hear himself think. You are drowning in the noise of other people's opinions because you haven't claimed your silence. Elias stood up and walked to the window, mirroring the mentor's stance. The first sliver of gold was breaking over the horizon, but Elias wasn't looking at the sun. He was looking at his own reflection in the glass. No longer a dreamer waiting for a sign, but an architect preparing to build. He reached for his phone, not to check it, but to power it off and place it in the bottom drawer of his desk. The room was silent. The air was cold, and for the first time in his life, he felt the intoxicating weight of absolute sovereignty. The 8 a.m. advantage wasn't a secret routine. It was the realization that the first battle of the day is the only one that truly matters. Elias sat down at his desk, opened a clean page, and began to work. The architect was finally awake. The version of you that began this video no longer exists. You have seen the blueprint, and you have stood at the edge of the dawn where the elite divide the spoils of the world. Now, as the screen fades, the only question that remains is whether you will allow yourself to be pulled back into the reactive mass of the 99%, or if you will take your seat among the architects. The climb to the top 1% is steep, and the world is engineered to distract you with noise, ensuring you remain a passenger in your own life. If you are serious about this metamorphosis, understand that our work has only just begun. We are building a collective of high-performers who recognize that in 2026, sovereignty is the only currency that truly matters. If you seek the strategic protocols for the next level, the rich mindset audits, the wealth-building frameworks, and the deep psychology of those who command empires, then subscribe and join this circle. Do not do it for the entertainment. Do it for the evolution. Turn on your notifications not to be distracted, but to ensure that when the next blueprint drops, you are the first to master it. The architect is finally awake, and the foundation is set. It is time to build.